Welcome to State Matters. I'm your host, Matt Muratore. Today we'll be discussing the ongoing opiate crisis and more specifically about the new recovery center in Plymouth. Joining me for that discussion is local businessman, community leader, and my good friend, Bob Hollis. Bob, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate that.
I'm glad to be here.
So we always start our show as to learn who our guests are. So for the few people out there that don't know who Bob Hollis is, talk about yourself, a little bit about your background.
Sure, I've been in Plymouth about 35 years. I started an insurance agency that long ago, and all that time I really enjoyed being part of the community, so that's how I get involved in the planning board and the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Club and eventually a lot of the other things.
You were on the planning board?
Yes, I was for about 11 years. I was 5 years.
Elected?
Elected.
I didn't realize that.
Then
Okay.
6 years as an alternate. And,
okay.
Then I couldn't do that anymore because I got on another organization and that got in the way. So
Yeah.
I've enjoyed that part of my life is the
Yeah.
community work.
Yeah. And I know you do some stuff with the Pilgrims too.
Yeah, we actually have hosted 2 ball players every year since they started 5 years ago, and that's an enjoyable thing for us. It's a nice activity for us to follow their lives afterwards too.
Yeah. And so you started your company, what, 35 years ago?
Yeah, it was
Now,
19.
where are you located? So people don't know?
We're located in the Pine Hills in the Village Green, but we started right downtown Plymouth before that, back in around 1986. So yeah, it has been quite a while that we've had this business in Plymouth. Now we have 2 of my own daughters involved too, as well as my wife. So.
Yeah. Which allows you to do some of this other stuff.
Exactly, because they're very capable.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, congratulations. I know recently you received the Paul Harris Award. I think your 4th or 5th one.
Right,
from
exactly.
the Rotary International. Congratulations on that again.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good.
And you did as well, I saw.
Yeah, I
this
got
year.
my first one. I was very proud of that.
Super.
Very
and that's
proud of that.
another great way to benefit the community, but also international.
Absolutely,
work too.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about the Spire Center first.
Right.
Talk about how that all came about.
Well, it all came about
And
because
for people who don't know, the Spire Center is downtown Plymouth,
Right.
25.5 Court Street across from the new town hall.
Exactly.
In case people have not been there yet.
Yeah, exactly. But I've been a lifelong musician. I did that through college, and 3 years out of college, I traveled, did it full time. I made a living at it.
Oh, is that right?
Exactly.
You did.
And then
what did you play?
I played trombone. I sang.
Okay. Okay.
And the singing got me into community theater and especially musicals and so forth. And we started Plymouth Community Theater probably 12, 15 years ago, and quickly realized that we didn't have a building large enough to do the type of things that we wanted to do. But I also knew that a building, the theater by itself couldn't support a building. So I said, we need a place where we can come and have musical shows too, and really be the center of all that type of performing arts culture for the area. And there was nothing around here. If you go to Boston or north of Boston, you'll see a number of these type of venues, but nothing down here. So that led me to the place where we found the synagogue was selling the building, got the CPC involved, and that all happened very quickly, where we got the grants and so forth afterwards to make it into what it is now. And now our goal is to make the exterior look like the interior, so it'll look like a Victorian building that it was when it was first built in 1886. And so we have grants out to do that at this time, so it'll match or even be nicer than the new town hall.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You know, and this show is called State Matters because, you know, we try to educate people on why the state matters to the local government and to the local communities.
Sure.
And this is a perfect example of it because not only the CPC through the town of Plymouth get money, but also the state provided some money.
The state provided money for the elevator fund that we had, some initial startup. We also got a community cultural facilities grant and a mass historical grant as well. So between all those grants and the CPC, and the state does part of that in their match, you know, and then all the support of the business community, there's been 1.2 million put into that building right now. And a large part of it also private donations and businesses too.
Yeah.
And last year we did around $400,000 of ticket sales that came in, 10,000 people coming through the door, 62% were outside of Plymouth.
I'm just going to ask you that. That's huge for Plymouth.
That is huge because they're all coming down and frequenting the restaurants and going out for a drink afterwards, staying in the rooms and the hotels and enjoying Plymouth as well. We've had people from all over the country come in to see shows.
It's really changed the dynamics of downtown, I think.
I think so.
You know, the distinction of being a cultural district too.
Right.
Right after you folks came in, I think really helped with all of that.
And we see it even more music coming into some of the other establishments down there. So instead of just being a place where we think of bars, it's a lot more than that now.
Yeah. Well, You've been in the forefront of the opiate crisis for some time now. I know the governor, soon after he was elected, put some landmark legislation in place to help with the opiate crisis. When he was campaigning, he every place he went when he was campaigning, he heard about the opiates and how it was destroying families. And it wasn't anything that he ever imagined that he'd be doing when he first became governor, but that was the first thing that he took on. And he took on quickly and made a lot of changes. And he went to a governor's meeting a year or so ago for governors throughout the whole country. And I think it was over 40 states took what Massachusetts did as a starting point for some legislation that will be starting in other parts of the country as well. So Massachusetts has been a leader in this. And I know Plymouth and Plymouth County has been leaders in this as well. But you really became sort of the face of it. You talk about your story.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, our son died of an overdose back in September of last year. And his story is very typical of many that are out there. And that's why I think we have to talk about it, because people just have too many misconceptions about addiction and those that suffer from it. But really, people are starting to realize that it goes across the gamut of every type of people that's out there, all the demographics, it doesn't matter. And once we experienced what we did, because Rob was in and out of recovery, at the end doing very, very well.
He was clean a couple of years.
He was clean over 2 years. He was going to work every day. He made good money up, as a roofer up in Boston. He was the guy that was getting the other guys going to the gym and eating right and so forth. And so when he went back and had that single overdose, I said to myself, why? So that's when it hit me. I said, there's a whole lot more that is going on there than just willpower that's needed to get through an addiction like that. And that's when I did all the research and realized that there's so many changes that goes on in someone's brain chemistry and body, their physiology, that prevents them from really, or makes it very, very difficult for them to kick that. And we see that more and more and more. And we're seeing a lot of functioning addicts out there. And those are the ones that seem to be susceptible because they don't think they need help. And then they're going to go out and they might buy something. They don't realize their body can't take what they're selling today, and certainly the fentanyl and so forth. And they end up overdosing and dying. So that's what made me realize that we had to do something about this. I've been telling people this is a war, that we have to look at this as a war.
I remember when the former Senate President and myself, first one in line for your son's wake. Right. And we came up to you and it's exactly what you said. This is a war and I need you to help.
Exactly.
Talk about that, the war. And it's not really a war on drugs, it's more than that.
Yeah, because first of all, we have to change people's mindsets from judgment to compassion. And that's one of my big points that I make. You can't judge that because, maybe next year it's going to be one of your loved ones that is suffering from it, or might be right now and you don't know. And that's the whole point. If people are ashamed to come forward, and if that stigma is still there because they're being judged, they're not going to get help, and people aren't talking about it, and people don't understand, the tragedy or the magnitude of it. I mean, 55,000 people died last year in this country. 20 people in Plymouth. There was 2,000 in the state. There's nothing else that's
gotten worse.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse. Yeah. So I make that analogy just much like World War II, where we sent people out on the front lines who were the people battling this, but everyone else in the whole community was behind it, and they have to be. Whenever we see someone make a statement like you see on social media sometimes about we shouldn't be offering Narcan and so forth. No, we've got to set that straight. We're here to give help to people and make sure that they understand if they come forward for help, they're not going to be shamed, they're not going to be made to feel guilty. We have to recognize that this is a disease. Once people are involved in this for a while, there's very, very definite changes that go on that on average takes over 5 years to get through for the brain to come back to some kind of normal function. So that means the second point I was getting to was once you're out of detox, once you're out of a treatment program, you have to have a recovery piece. There has to be long-term care peer-to-peer counseling, support, so people can get through that point where they are coming back to some kind of normalcy within themselves.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the Recovery Center in a minute, but I want to touch upon what you just said was very key, I think, is the stigma. And something you and your wife Donna did was you put it in the newspaper.
Right.
Talk about that.
Well, we put it, as soon as we got out of the hospital where we had viewed my son for the last time, and he had come in, even there, I mean, when I got the call that he had an overdose from my daughter, I just thought he was okay. They were bringing him to the hospital. And that's the way people think, we'll get him into a program. But we went there and he had died. And as soon as we got out, my daughter Jillian said, "Dad, don't put in that he died unexpectedly. He wouldn't have wanted that. Put in that he died of an overdose." And talk about his struggle and the fact that where he was in his life, that he was a great kid. He wasn't, the impression people have of the ones that are, that we don't want to talk about. This is everybody's family. And so we put that there, and then we put the big ad in the paper because we wanted to say, look at the picture. Look at the picture. He's a real person. He's not a statistic. And one of the other things I've seen now is people are posting videos of all the pictures of those that have died. I mean, I saw one a few months ago of 60 over the last 2 or 3 years in this area, and they did the photos. And it really brought to life that these people are worthy, they're members of our families, members of our community, deserve our help and deserve our respect.
And it's a disease, and that's what people need to remember. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just like AIDS was back in the 80s. It was a disease, but people talk about now cancer wasn't talked about before it is now. It's a disease, and people need to talk about it and say it's okay, and I applaud you and your family for doing that. Once that came out, I had about 4 or 5 people that approached me and just said, hey, I have a loved one who is struggling with that. And they were keeping it as people that you and I know.
Exactly.
And they were starting to talk about it now, and that's a good thing.
I still get that now. I'm surprised myself, and in a way it's good, but in a way it's bad that they go through their lives that they feel they can't talk about it because they're going to be ridiculed or whatever, and it shouldn't be like that.
No,
and even when it comes down to the disease versus choice, maybe some people make bad choices in the beginning, but once they're addicted, there's no more choice involved. I mean, I look at my son. There's no way that he would have done what he did. He had just gotten moved in with someone. He was engaged. He loved kids, loved his job, loved everyone he was working with. He wouldn't have chosen that. Just like no one else would have chosen addiction.
Right. They don't choose it.
No.
Yeah. So we're taping today, which is July 21st of 2017. On February 15th of 2017, you had a meeting at the Spire Center to talk about a recovery center. Talk about that meeting.
Well, again, getting it out into the community. There's a lot of information.
It's about 100 people that showed up
to that. About
Over
150,
Right, yeah.
And what we want to do is let people know what's involved with addiction. That so they're informed. Then they start to understand the nature of it, and they're much more likely to offer support. Also, to let people know the need for a recovery center. And the timing has been great, and the support from the community after that point has been great. I mean,
you set a goal for $100,000.
Right, and that we had just formed the 501c3 2 weeks before we got our notification that we were accepted, and we had that goal. And now, July 5th, that quickly we've opened, and we had raised $125,000 with more to come. So
talk about the recovery center, the peer-to-peer recovery, and the Gandera Center.
Sure.
And where it's located.
Another great thing is Pat Daly made it one of her major points as she was in her last part of her being the executive director of the South Shore Community Action Council, that she wanted to make sure we had a place to have this. And the rest of the board and the rest of the staff over at the South Shore Community Action Council have been so supportive.
They embraced it.
They really did. I mean, talking about offering services that they have between their food bank and fuel assistance and Head Start program and Massasoit's there with job training and education available too. But we're right across the street from the courthouse and
up the street from the hospital.
Yes, exactly. And it's a perfect location. We opened up there July 5th. A lot of donations from the community, and even now we've had interior decorators going in and changing things around, and so because they want to.
And you got all the furniture donated too.
Yeah, exactly, and everyone wants to donate either time or money or material, and it's been great. As a matter of fact, we've already had 6 people that's been placed into treatment from there that wouldn't have had a place to go, because that was the other thing we realized my wife really emphasized was when we were going through this with Rob is if he wanted to get into treatment, there was no one to talk to. There's no place, a resource to go to. Now we have it. So if anyone out there has a need, they feel they need to bring someone in just to talk, or if someone has to come in, they feel they have to get into treatment, they should go there, because we've got people there through Gandera. It's a nonprofit organization that runs 3 other centers. These people all know what they're doing, so we've contracted with them to actually run the center. And they've placed 6 people now that wouldn't have had a place to go over the last 10 days or so. So that's one key piece, is the intervention, providing the resources, the education about how to get treatment. The other key piece is we want everyone, once they get out of those programs, to come there. We have 12-step meetings coming in. We have peer-to-peer counseling. We have support groups that support people who have lost loved ones to addiction. We have another one starting up by Katie Marini, who's on our board and the vice president, who's going to do one for siblings, because she lost her sister 3 years ago. She's the one that wrote the book, The Story of the Red-Tailed Hawk, and she talks about this very openly too. So there's going to be it will be a community of those in recovery, and that's the difference between just going to a meeting and then leaving. We'll have a lot of resources available there, and a lot of people experiencing recovery available to help those new to recovery.
Now, there are 10 recovery centers, because I've done my homework on this and we've talked about this. There are 10 recovery centers in the Commonwealth that are state funded. This is the only, there is now 11 with the Plymouth Recovery Center, and this is the only privately funded one. So, and you said the Gandera Center has 3 locations that they're running, one in Hyannis, one in Brockton.
Yeah.
And you've raised $125,000.
Right.
However, you're going to need state funding to help, correct?
Exactly. And
and how can the state help with that?
Well, first of all, we weren't going to wait till we got a state grant, because we don't know when that's going to be available. And then there were people that needed us desperately. There was there were people the first day we opened that came in, so that was key. Now, and Gandera has been good enough that they actually have their directors volunteering their time once a day, a week, coming in to help out, and then we have 2 full-time people in there, outreach people too. And we're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, which is amazing right off the bat.
Right off the bat, yeah.
And Saturday 10 to 2, and we're going to have support groups in there every evening too. But the key is, in order to really keep going, is we do need the state grants that are available. I know they just got money from the federal government that's key towards fighting opioid addiction, and part of that money was destined to open 2 more recovery centers in the state. So part of our whole plea to the community when we raised money was we should have to show a lot of support. We would really love to get a lot of small donations from a lot of people as well. And so that's been part of the whole thing. We have a lot of activities coming up in the fall to help us do that too. So we do want to be able to go to the state and say, look, we're already open. We're already serving people. We've already got a lease, and it's productive, and we should be the one that this should be funded on the next go-around. And we are the one in the middle of this huge geographic area that doesn't have any services like this right now.
Yeah, this is not just for Plymouth. This is Plymouth County.
This is Plymouth County, and I've already been to the county meeting. You were there with me when we were awarded with some funding, and we made that point that this is for the whole county, and that's one of the other reasons we wanted to be where we are, because we're right off the highway. I was at the meeting that Chief Pateri had earlier this week, where they met with all 27.
Yeah, talk about that. That was put together by the Plymouth County DA, Sheriff, Mike Boteri, the chief.
And as well as E.B.
like
Hope.
E.B. Hope. And I understand there was a couple hundred people there. What was the purpose of that? There were a couple hundred people.
In every single town, there was 27 towns with their police chiefs and a lot of members of the police department and many different programs, talking about as a united front how we can combat this. And right now, E.B. Hope and Project Outreach has combined, and now they will provide their services throughout the whole county as far as their intervention services. When someone overdoses, they will get a visit and offer for treatment. So it's a great thing, and that's the first county in the country, never mind the state, that's done something like that.
Is that right? Yeah. And you mentioned the Plymouth County commissioners. They did put in $5,000, and I understand there's another $7,500 coming from the in the fall from the county commissioner as well. So it's a private nonprofit organization.
Right.
So it's a private helping funds through donations, through the local community, through county government.
Right.
hopefully we can get local municipalities involved as well as the state. Because
Exactly.
doesn't everyone have a stake in this?
So like I said, just like in World War II, I mean, every single citizen was behind the effort that was going on in the war.
Whether you were fighting it or
Exactly.
supporting it.
Exactly. So I liken this to World War III. It has to be that approach. We're taking that many lives. I mean, last year, as many lives were lost to the opioid addiction in 1 year that in all of Vietnam War was.
Is that right?
Exactly,
Wow.
55,000 or so. So that's the impact it has. If this was some other type of disease going through us, I think there'd be a lot more public outcry about it. So that's why we have to raise the alarm as well.
Some people say it's, this has been going on for a while, this opiate crisis, but all of a sudden it's starting to get attention. Well, why is that?
Two things, I think. Now, the first thing is because the opioids, the synthetics that were made that were really mass-produced by Purdue Pharma and the rest of them in the 90s, and they came in and talked to the new generation of doctors and said pain medication and treatment has to be a major part of protocol in what you do, and this is non-addictive. And that's the other key thing is a lot of people don't come into this recreationally anymore. They come in as a result of pain medication from long acute injuries or operations, surgeries, and so forth. So that's part of it. And the second part of it, because of that, it's not just something that the minorities are suffering from anymore. This is across the mainstream. And unfortunately, people are paying more attention to that now as well. And that's kind of an indictment. We should not have been waiting this long. But it is out in the force in the mainstream now, and we have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, I heard a stat recently that the United States makes up 5% of the world, but we consume 80% of the opiates.
And again, a lot of that was pharmaceutical companies and what they did and pushing. And now, as you know, the mass laws have completely reversed that. When I just had an operation at the hospital, and they were very tight on how they prescribe.
That was part of what the governor did to reduce the opiates going out there. Prescriptions from doctors had to be reduced. They had to be monitored now, so people can't go from hospital to hospital or doctor to doctor and shop for this. So it's trying to reduce the consumption. But that's only one small leg of the whole problem.
Right, and the CDC came out a few months ago, and said, you get a 10-day prescription for opioids, you have 15% chance of being addicted. If you get 3 10 days, it goes up to 25%.
Yeah.
So you have to be very cognizant of that. So that's part of that as well.
Yeah. Now, who else is on the board with you?
I'm the president of the board. Katie Marini, I mentioned, is the vice president. John Moody, who was the longtime Finance Committee chairman for Plymouth, is our treasurer. Cheryl Bartlett is a former Department of Public Health commissioner, is on the board. Matt Glenn from Glenn Electric has been very, very helpful as well. My daughter, Erica Hollis, has been right there too, and I hope I'm not missing anyone because of
I think that's it. Yeah. No, it's a great board.
And Terry Murray is not on the board, but she's been very great in an advisory role too.
Yeah.
And again, I really applaud you for your support too, Matt. You've taken this on in a big way. As a matter of fact, giving up you're doing your campaigns on the 4th of July parade and devoting the trolley to what we're doing with the Recovery Center was great.
I'll tell you, with that trolley that we did the 4th of July, I mean, we got so many people, as you know, Donna was there, and I think we had over 40 people in the trolley, and if I get half that amount of people when I do a campaign, I'd be thrilled.
Exactly.
But people wanted to come out to show their support and help. How else can people help?
Well, definitely we'll be looking for volunteers, especially for people that are in recovery themselves. Part of the best thing they can do for themselves is to help themselves is to help someone else. And so there's opportunities at the Recovery Center for that. There'll be opportunities when we have some of the events that are coming up in the fall. We have October 1st, we're going to have a jazz concert, a benefit at the Spire.
Nice.
October 15th, we have a great golf tournament.
Talk about that golf tournament. Yeah, this sounds great.
That's Plymouth Country Club. It's going to be October 15th. It's a Sunday afternoon. So we'll be having a great opportunity for people not only volunteer, but to play golf, to sponsor, to have prizes and so forth. We're really looking to probably raise at least $25,000 with that alone. And then we're also in on November 4th with Hope Fest with the Joint Hospital Club.
Oh, okay.
So that's going to be at the 1620 Hotel. And it's a benefit that usually they do just for the hospital. This time they're bringing us in because they're benefiting the program they have for the inpatient treatment and outpatient work that they do, but also they recognize the role of the Recovery Center, and they want to make sure that we can get some help from that too. So those are 3 events, and then we have others that will be planning other great ways that people can get involved that way.
And I know you said there's a lot of people that have contributed, but there's a couple of organizations that really contributed in a
Sure.
large way with matching grants. Talk about that.
I have to say, kudos to the Kiwanis Club. It's the smallest, by far,
It
service
is,
club.
yeah.
And they had by far the greatest impact. I did a meeting and came away, it was a 2-hour meeting, a lot of questions and so forth. And a week later they said, look, we're going to offer $10,000 on a matching grant. At that point we had raised $60,000. And not only because of what they did, so that we got the 10 grand match, so that was 20 now. But because of the attention that was brought to it, it energized the whole campaign. And in a month's time, it went to $125,000. And as a result of that, the Rotary Club, the Sunrise Club, again another relatively small club, said we'd do
That
a
you and I
5,000.
belong to, yeah,
Exactly.
small club, yeah.
And they, without us prodding, they did it on their own, said we'll do 5,000. And that was the last. That's the one that put us over the top. So they were super good too. So we have that. We had the Lions Club were the first ones early on. They gave $3,000. And then the Noontime Rotary Club also was a contributor. So the service organizations really stepped to the fore. And they're a great anyway, but in this case they recognized the need and they really came through. But kudos to the Kiwanis Club.
Yeah.
They showed you don't need a lot of people to get stuff done.
And I think when the grant money starts becoming available for the recovery centers, we'll probably need those folks maybe to help write letters or make awareness, for this. Because again, to sustain this, we're going to need that state grant money.
We do.
And then also again the local municipalities as well. I think we need to start tapping into.
I think so, because that's a big part of big problems in everyone's community, and they've got to play a part in doing so. I mean, we can continue to go as we are, but and really to be effective at the center, we recognize that there's a large part of people that will be served during the day, but the hardest one to crack are those that are working, the functioning addicts, don't think they need help, really do, and they'll be coming home from work, and we need to make sure the service is available late in the afternoon, early in the evening before they go out and get into trouble. That's my goal, is to make sure we're reaching that population.
Yeah, well, that's great. Bob, thank you so much, for what you do for the community, but, for putting this all together for the community and showing the need. And again, it's very unique what you have done, looking at it from a state level. Usually people are there waiting for handouts to start these type of programs. You've done it the other way around. Said, look, we started it, we're helping people, but in order to sustain it, we need you to partner with us. Partner with the county, partner with us, and partner with the state. So we'll continue to work on that and get those funds and work with the Gandera Center. Again, we thank them for it. So thank you so much for what you do, and thanks for coming out today.
You're certainly welcome.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed the show today, and if you can help out in any way with the Plymouth Recovery Center, they are on Overy Street. Feel free to stop by or give them a call. Once again, thanks for watching. Thanks to PAC TV for all their help today in putting on this show, and we'll see you next time on State Matters. Thanks for watching.